people starting the memorial business. Remember all these, that might have been Memorial Day, because it seems to me it happened at the Gettysburg prior to the cemetery really being set up and everything. However, well, good morning. I hope everybody's surviving the trauma of the Los Angeles Dodgers winning the World Series. Did I use that joke last week? It's worked several times really well. People just laugh, and it's funny. I have to admit, almost all my friends are libtards, as they say. You haven't?
No.
Oh gosh, that's old. I was surprised to hear that it's still being used. My problem, of course, not only was I in the military where you're not supposed to, publicly at least, say anything about your political affiliations or your religion. I mean, basically, you're supposed to be anonymous in everything in the military. No feelings, because you're just following orders. Like, I remember walking with my wife, and you're not supposed to hold hands on base, because especially if you're in uniform, because you don't want anyone to think, oh my goodness, this person has emotions. He's not just a machine. Ooh.
My ex-husband would never hold my hand on base, and he would hurt me every time.
Well, he was doing it because of
Diligence.
the culture that required that, really. In fact, I think it could be penalized if, so nobody. But retiring from the military and then becoming a teacher here, the same thing applied, You're not supposed to take sides on anything. And that was actually philosophically exactly where I was, because having been kind of relieved by Hegel, as I kind of argued last class, that that's kind of the acme, the apex, the peak of this course, in the sense that all the trauma of not knowing how we could possibly know anything was essentially solved by Hegel, in my mind, and for good reason. That the sociality of reason really is how knowledge really. How does knowledge work? Why is it that we believe in gravity? Well, because people haven't been convinced yet that Einstein's theory is superior to the Sir Isaac Newton gravity. It really doesn't work as a model for everyday life. Actually, gravity works really, really well. When you're thinking gravity is what you're dealing with, and not trying to calculate the relative speed of the Earth moving in space and your speed coincidentally, collapsing you against the Earth at 1g. It just so happened. Those are just two models, and you have to follow Einstein in order to understand the big picture. But as far as not dropping your coffee cup, gravity is really wonderful for that. Well, what makes the difference is the sociality of how do we speak, in whatever language we're using. How do we, Kant wanted to think that there was something biological that structured the way we perceive things. And that's true. That is a model that's really important, because humans do have many characteristics in our methods of perception and so on, which is, I mean, we might not really even understand all the different aspects of our biological perception. Guaranteed we don't, because science has been fascinating and discovering more and more things about how perception works, how the eyes pick up light, and how the senses, the tongue tastes things, how the nose smells things, and so on. How the differences in our hearing. Talked about males versus females, and so on. Why Kamala sounded like she was screaming at everybody all the time, whereas Trump is just kind of having a nice conversation with people. Kamala is terrible. I totally got the pitch wrong, but I don't think I've tried to imitate Trump. President-elect Trump. I don't remember.
Shane Gillis has a very good impression.
Who does?
Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis. Well, is he one of the ones on Saturday Night Live? Because the Saturday Night Live sketches are absolutely wonderful, I think, Well, but that's my perception. We have a language that we share in common or not. Do we mean the same thing by things? Probably not, really, depending on so many differences. When Wittgenstein asks us, what's the meaning of meaning? It's like, blows our head apart. But you have to have that. You have to have a network of relationships. You have to have communications with people. And it's pretty obvious now in retrospect that when we look at what people believe they know, it's the networks of people who all agree with you that all say, we know this, etc. That's how knowledge works, through the social networks. What Hegel called Geist. What's the the phenomena of spirit, of mind. So my question in test 3 is, on the one hand, the question Kant seems to spark, the new psychological studies, how to figure out how we structure the experience, our experiences, the phenomena. And then Hegel's, how does that spark sociology? And so if you think of the new science of sociology, Auguste Comte, one of them, John Stuart Mill, who else? Max Weber, there's all kinds of folks that pile on to this Hegelian view of things and tries to figure out how knowledge works. Yes, you can't do away with the biological nature of it, the gestalt, the way images work, the need for a narrative. That's something I don't think I might have mentioned. Carl Jung. Well, Freud does have a sense of narrative, although it's biologically based and it's mostly based on sex. There's good historical reasons why Freud might have done that. Maybe what he was trying to do was protect Jewish communities from the impression that they were guilty of the problems in society, and instead talk about it being a natural phenomenon as a result, God bless you, of all the, it could be, the sweaters I wear, maybe you're allergic to them.
Not that, man. Not that. I thank you for your worry.
L'chaim. Prost. Nazdrovie. Here's mud in your eye. Boy, our culture is weird. Mud in your eye. What is that?
What's that?
You never heard here's mud in your eye?
Mm-hmm.
This is English we're speaking, right? Am I weird? It is. bunch of expressions, I guess.
And it's like a cheers, essentially.
Here's money.
And it means,
I don't know.
what do you think it means?
After you drink this, your eyes are going to be muddy looking, because you're going to be red and Irish. So Hegel gives us this sociality of reason. So it adds another element to how we know things, because culture is part of how you structure your phenomena. Your language is something that helps you understand your phenomena. And for me, that was such a victory, to realize, aha, it's very complex. We've got lots of work to do to understand how all of this works, but now we understand the answer, the solution to all these metaphysical questions that historically, since the beginning of philosophy, were presented to us as dramatic. How do you understand things? And we now have terrific answers that and in that sense, I would say that thanks to Hegel, we have that solution to the metaphysics that enables us now to build all these sciences like sociology and psychology and things like that, in order for us to try to understand even better and fine-tune our understanding. Why did the people in this particular town vote this way? Why did these people vote this way, etc.? Well, what do? They don't try to look and see, if there's something in their eyeballs, that are different in that town. No, that's not relevant. It's Hegel. So Hegel solved that problem for me. So that's kind of a peak philosophically, because metaphysics isn't really solved. It's just that now you have the method to understand those issues. It's not that all the other previous philosophers are worthless. Why study them anymore? Well, it actually only makes sense it seems to me, to go through that process to get to this point, so that we understand things. It's the moccasins you have to walk in order to understand the individual that's today. And even in science, of course, it still applies. So famously, we end up with a person like the structure of scientific revolutions. This is the Wikipedia page on it. But with where is our image here? Didn't I push that already? Oh, sorry, didn't even notice it. The light appears to be on. Appears to be growing. We got it locked off. Doesn't help if I have it on this. What? What's he talking about? Okay, so Thomas Kuhn. Not sure why we don't have volume up, volume down, mute speakers. The mute speakers system. Reset, volume up. Interesting. Well, I'll just explain it anyway. Thomas Kuhn, in a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which was a bestseller. And Thomas Kuhn was absolutely astounded because it's basically history of science. And whoever heard of a book in history of science becoming a bestseller? but it does. I mean, he's got other books too, which are interesting. But the main thing that he wants to point out is that the way science progresses is actually more easily understood, not simply through studying the science involved, but through the sociology of the scientific community and how the different revolutions in thought occur as we move from one paradigm. So if you're used to the idea of the concept of a paradigm today, may have been original with him, but the idea of a paradigm shift is that what we have is a social group that believes in this interpretation of science, like gravity, and then it shifts through actual changes in personnel who, in a sense, have a revolution over the departments in the university or the community of scientists, so that you end up literally having a replacement of certain individuals who believe the old paradigm with younger people that believe in a new paradigm, and so you end up having this socially structured scientific revolution. So it's again the sociality of reason. If you think of it this way, you know, the community has changed and the community's beliefs have changed. Same thing as, you know, with, say, a religious change, you know, moving towards Protestantism. So the structure of scientific revolutions. So this kind of sociality doesn't just apply to our beliefs about how we should treat other people, or whether or not we should have tariffs, or whether or not we should have orange juice. Is it good for you? What if it has different chemicals in it in order to preserve it? And stuff? Is it still, you know, water? Should we have the chemicals that we put in the water? You know, some people don't believe we ought to be that concerned about our teeth that we put chemicals in the water to keep your teeth from rotting. That's kind of a social revolution in a sense that goes through this kind of dialectical process even that Hegel talked about. So again, you know, the discovery of Hegel and understanding it, and by the way, I think I really lucked out. I had a teacher who really understood that whole movement in Europe, and just, well, I'm in school, I'm going to a professor who's teaching 19th century thought, and he explained it, and I was like, okay, I understand it. It's really wonderful. It ties into so many different things. And then the rest of my life, I keep meeting all these people that are totally confused about that whole period. You know, I think I mentioned the lecture at APU. You know, the philosopher came up from California, gave a lecture. What about Hegel? Something happened there. No one understands it. Everyone I know understands it. What the heck is the matter with you? You know, you're not understanding. That's really pretty basic. So what's the deal? I don't know. Again, that's actually explainable through the whole same process. If you're with groups of people that are stuck on Kant and you think this is really the highlight of philosophy for today, and then you've got another group that's, you know, post-Hegelian, you know, and you know, everything has been transformed by that. That's a kind of a scientific. What do you mean by the word science? Scientia means knowledge. This is clearly a sense of knowledge, so it's certainly a scientific revolution. You move from the paradigm shift of Kant to the paradigm shift of Hegel and the post-Hegelians, the Romantic movement, and so on. So Hegel is this highlight, but I mean, obviously things don't end with Hegel. We end up with a continuation in exploring all the aspects that this new understanding opens up to us. Well, one of the ones that's really significant, we talked about Mill, but one of the ones that's really significant, which you can't see on your screen, because we've got a lazy, nobody fed it breakfast, I guess, this morning. And I hit reset, and it didn't do anything. Try something. Go to something else entirely. Well, I'll complain about it, but I'll just dance and entertain you. So Søren Kierkegaard, I'll still use the screen for me because who the heck remembers his dates? 1813. He was born in Denmark. Søren. How do you say Søren? Because the O has a line through it because it's Danish. I don't know. Søren, I've heard. I don't know. But in any case, Kierkegaard, I think I've mentioned already once that Kirk means church and yard means yard, or even in this case, as I understand it, cemetery. And so the family name really came from having a house in the cemetery.
It's his death day today.
Is it?
Yep.
Well, Wunderschön. That's just happenstance. I didn't plan it that way. A lot of people died today, actually, but Kierkegaard, okay, is the one we're talking about. And he was only 42.